The Buffalo Bills coaches are at a breaking point. Bills Mafia, today we've got to talk about, we have to ask the question that I think many of us do not want to ask. When we look at where this team is right now, when we look at even what we see on Twitter, people are saying it's time to have a conversation about Sean McDermott. People say maybe it should be a bye week for Sean McDermott. And earlier this week, I did a poll and I asked you how you were doing or how you were feeling about this team. Over 1,000 of you responded. People are just like, fire everybody now. You know, people, a lot of the fan base, right? Frustrated, patience running thin. Of course, I think I'm in this category where I want to sit and wait until week 8. But there's a lot of you guys who are just like ride or die. We're riding this thing out. But the Bills are 4-2 right now, and we have to ask ourselves the question: is it time for us to move on from Babich? Is it time for us to move on from Joe Brady? Is it time for a full-on reset? And of course, we're 4-2. I'm not asking for crazy mid-season moves, especially with a team who does still have Super Bowl aspirations. But I do think it's important to acknowledge the fan sentiment right now that are very, very split. Some of us are patient. Some of us are fed up and over it. And we are full out saying, fire everybody right now. Again, the same frustrations that we felt in the middle of the season last year, the inconsistent offense, the soft defense, and really the unclear accountability and just some of the coach speak coming from McDermott's mouth. It doesn't really feel like at times he's a leader of men. It just feels like he's, mailing it in year over year. But again, this video isn't a rant. This is just, I want to have an honest conversation and really with connection point here with you in the comments about what's really happening and where you think this coaching staff should go, or really any moves that Brandon Beane should make. And I'll be honest with you, there's a whole conversation we could have about our owner. There's a whole conversation we could have about Brandon Beane as a drafter, as a general manager. But today, I just want to lead us in a grounded conversation around one question: is it time to move on from this coaching staff or not yet? The first thing I want to talk about is really the case. And again, it's really the case for change. Again, the Bills have reached a coaching plateau. The system, I think, that once worked, we've had these really positive and great years of the defense with this defensive-minded head coach. But really, I'm feeling, and I think you're feeling, we have memories of Sean McDermott as our coach failing us, right? Every season seems to follow this same arc. A strong start, we struggle in October, we struggle like week 5 or 6 or whatever it is, and then the same explanations come out of his mouth. We'll fix it. It'll be different. But oftentimes it doesn't. We might get the wins on the field, but the issues in our organization or in our personnel, whatever it might be, it just stays the same. And there's like this repetitive fatigue of these issues with this team. But of course, there's offensive stagnation, right? There's predictability in, I think, our play calling. And a lot of people right now are like, what in the world is going on with Joe Brady? And earlier this last week or a week and a half ago, we saw McDermott just putting in to Joe Brady and just yelling at him for his cute play calling and even calling him out, right? But again, there's like a level of defensive predictability. We have gotten so burned, but whether it's Babich or the conservative leadership of Sean McDermott over his bend don't break, zone defense, like we're getting killed on third downs, across the middle of the field so often. And again, our run defense right now, for a lot of reasons, is struggling. And it just feels like the same issues week in and week out. And again, even like there's, I think, like an emotional flatness to Sean McDermott as a coach. We feel like the process, the mantra as a whole has just lost its spark. The sideline energy doesn't seem to match the adversity. A bunch of people were making fun of him for his new glasses this week, which is his own thing. But this culture is not leading to a consistent production and execution on the field. And I think that for us, that gives us maybe just like this window of anxiety that we as fans, again, in this case for change, we look at Josh Allen as a premier, MVP last year level player, the best player in football. And so many of you are like, we are wasting Josh Allen's prime. Like this is, Jim Kelly stuff all over. Like we're wasting Josh Allen and under this leadership. It's just potentially too cautious or too rigid. Again, those are reasons I think that people are just sitting here. They're like, calling for Sean McDermott. They're calling for Babbage. They're calling for Joe Brady, and even mad, of course, at Brandon Beane. But I think, again, there's still a large majority of Bills Mafia that are totally okay with riding this thing out, just like me. And I want to talk about the case for stability. But before we get into the case for stability and not seeing change right now midseason, I just, again, if you love Buffalo Bills conversations, Buffalo Bills content every single day, join our channel. Hit that like, hit that subscribe. Remember, this is this is Crack the Table. We're all Bills, no breaks, every single day, breaking down Buffalo Bills content. But again, I want to get even more into the case for stability. And again, success still exists. This is a 4-2 team, and yes, you can say, oh, our opponent's win-loss column is not very good, and it's like what, 3-21 or whatever it was last time I checked. But it hasn't met the expectations to win these games, like the Patriots game, which was a gut punch, like the Falcons game, which was a gut punch. We lost both of those in terrible fashion, and we could have won each of them if we didn't have the turnovers in the Falcons game, if our defense would have stopped the run, or if you look at the Patriots game, if we would have just not thrown some of these interceptions, if we would have, again, even in the Falcons game, if we would have just run the ball with James Cook later in the game, we would have been fine. And winning consistency, though, is one thing that this coaching staff has proven. In the last 5 seasons, they've been a top 10 team in winning percentage overall in the NFL. That's good. But again, you look at like some of the players that we've had Josh Allen carrying us in a lot of that. He's had to play a lot of hero ball. That's not what we want to see week in and week out. But again, there is a level of cultural discipline, which is a positive thing. Historically, we've had a low penalty rate. The last 2 weeks, not good, but there has been maybe, I think, a level of professionalism and preparedness for these games, and a consistent locker room without too many divas going off the deep end. We could name a few, but injuries, I think, do matter. And right now, when we look at this team, we realize that we've missed Ed Oliver for a handful of this season. We realize that we are now missing TJ Sanders and Maxwell Hairston and just all these other guys who've missed a game or two. Like Dalton Kincaid is out right now, and we're calling for a receiver, which maybe we could talk again in a little bit about Chris Olave. I'm still beating the drum for him. But like when you look at the issues, the schematic, and really just overall issues, the production is going to be skewed by the lack of talent or the lack of high-end players because of their injuries. Now, you can look at the training staff, you can look at whatever you want, but like regardless of it, we're still 4-2, and over the last couple of years, we've been a top 10 winning team, right? Continuity with our quarterback has been great. Again, even when we have like this historical perspective, we realize we do lose a couple games here and there, but we still push for playoff wins later on in the year. So again, maybe the real issue isn't success, or it's not failure, but it's whether or not this group can actually like evolve and change with the roster and with the present team that they have. And so I think there's a decision ahead, whether I don't think it's going to be midseason. I don't think that we're going to fire our coaches midseason. I think Babbage and Brady and McDermott are all safe right now. I don't think a team with a level of aspirations that we have are going to move these players right now in the middle of the season. But maybe you think differently. If you do, let me know principally in the comments, why would you do that? Again, give me your level-headed take on this. Tell me why there's something better for this team in season that we could do. But again, Buffalo's coaching staff, I think, is at a crossroads. They need to evolve and develop, or I think they're going to be replaced this offseason. You could look at, the coaching transitions of the Sabres or something like that, and you're like, oh, Pagula's not going to do anything. Brandon Beane's not going to do anything. Whatever, you can say what you want, but whether you want Babbage gone, whether you want Brady gone, whether you want McDermott gone, let me know down in the comments. What are you thinking? Who do you think could come in right now and actually give us a leg up comparatively to what we have right now? But again, it's been 8 years, I think 8 years in this system, and it feels like a lifetime. It feels like the history and the nightmares of losses under Sean McDermott. Again, of course, like people in comments are calling for Leslie Frazier to come back, who was great. He killed us, right? He killed us later on in that game. He has struggled in playoffs, but regardless, like people want Leslie Frazier to come back over Bobby Babbage, right? Maybe I think Sean McDermott needs to step out as a leader. Maybe he needs to reinvent himself. And just being honest, like I think about when Andy Reid was in Philly, and I'm not saying I want Sean McDermott gone, but like when he moved from Philly to the Chiefs, there was some big changes that happened in his philosophy, in his leadership, and I wonder if there can be an evolution as well well in Sean McDermott. I'm not calling him Andy Reid, but I am saying that there is some potential there. So here's three possible paths forward. An internal, evolution. Keep the structure of the coaching, but change the scheme, refresh the scheme. Gosh, we need to play more man coverage. I'm so sick of this zone defense. But maybe a partial reset. Maybe we replace one of the coordinators. If that's so, which coordinator do you want gone over the other one? Maybe there's some new ideas that could come in if we can bring somebody, just promote somebody from within in the middle of the season. Or maybe you're just, again, sitting here, you're like, it's time for a full reset. Get these guys out of here. Maybe you need new energy. Maybe there's some high risk, high reward with that. But again, accountability, I think, is the heart of this conversation. We have a lot of good players. I realize we just re-signed a bunch of late round draft picks for big deals, but stability and discipline has marked this franchise, especially over the last 5, 6, 7 years. And it's not an assumption in the NFL. But breaking points like this don't always mean the end of an era of a coaching staff. Sometimes they mean that evolution or change is about to happen. Again, the question for us today is, what should we do with this coaching staff? What do you think, Bills Mafia? Should we keep them around? Should we throw them off to the side? Or again, what do you think? Is there a tweak, stay the course, or start over? Again, there's so many things we could talk about. I just appreciated this tweet. My Bills trade deadline prediction is that they're adding Hoyt and Okunjobi and basically getting Max Hairston back at some point, and Josh Palmer and Dalton Kincaid getting out there healthy. And again, he's saying it's not sarcastic. It's just the way Brandon Beane is, and it's just the way our team has been. But again, I'm beating the drum. Dan Mitchell's beating the drum. Get Chris Olave on this squad. Couple other things. Dalton Kincaid has had an incredible year so far. We need him back. That oblique injury needs to heal. Again, there was this crazy tweet that was sent out of Jalen Waddle. There's no chance. There's no shot the Dolphins trade the Buffalo Bills Jalen Waddle. But I love this. Again, just looking at the touchdowns, everybody eats. Again, everybody nibbles right now. But we are very widespread with who's getting touchdowns. And again, the schedule coming up, we've got a lot of 4-2 teams and 5-1 team at the top with the Indianapolis Colts, which I don't think anybody predicted. There's a lot to talk about here. In all of it, again, my name's Colin. This is Crack the Table. We're all Bills, no breaks. If you have a take on the coaching staff, drop it below. Let's have the conversation. I'll see you there. Have a good day. God bless. Go Bills.